Okay, so component one, the long one, the one that's worth more percentage, as a reminder, it's worth 30%, 36% of your overall GCSE grade, whereas the other paper's worth 24. Just a quick recap, the information on the front's important. First of all, total marks for the paper. On this paper, you are allowed a calculator. There aren't many questions, it would just be normally a heart rate question that they would ask you to times by 60 or 80%, for example, work out people's age, etc, etc. Some of you, despite doing this multiple times, don't know why I put misses, it's miss. Just make sure as you're reading through, you're just double checking. You've got loads of papers that look very, very similar, but there's different information on the front. So using black ink, fill in the boxes at the top of this page with your name, centre number and candidate number, answer all questions, answer the questions in the space you provided. There's more space if you need it. So again, you know that already, you can ask for that. How the marks are divided, so in brackets. This is a guide as to how much time you should spend on each question. I wonder how many of you read that before the start of your exam. Read each question carefully before you start it. Check your answers, particularly if you have time at the end. So we're going to go through the multiple choices relatively quickly. Most of us did mixed on this actually. Some simple, I mean the question one was the worst for sure. But before you even get to the question, it's just about processing the first bit of information. So answer all the questions, write your answers in the space provided. Some questions must be answered with a cross in a box. Some of you tick for some bizarre reason. If you can see ever so faintly, there is a cross already in the box. These are marked by computers, humans don't mark these. So we don't ever mark the multiple choice questions because it's literally A, B, C or D. So the important part is when you put an X in a box, the computer reads that against some code underneath and it registers which one you've picked and it marks it. So if you've done an absolute mess and the computer doesn't pick up you've done a mess, there could be some issues. So one of the ways they've asked to help with that, and this is with government forms as well, if you change your mind about an answer, just simply put a line through it. So here's a demo of what that looks like. And then your normal, so if a computer registers a line through it, it'll go, oh, they didn't mean that one. If it goes absolutely catastrophic and you've gone, no, it was that first one, and you've second guessed yourself 3 or 4 times, then I would just cross them out and put an X next to it. And the computer will register there's a problem and ask the human to interact with it. Okay, so just making sure you're nice and clear and simple. So let's go with these questions quite quickly. Again, we read them out. Remember, bold the example, choose to bold things out to make things obvious to you. So when I see bold, it draws my attention immediately because it's telling me certain things. So which one of the following bone classifications is most suitable for weight-bearing activities? We're going to recap this in the new year anyway, so it's not a problem. But a load of you put long bones because you went for the lever action because you think, oh, we walk on our legs, so our femur's really strong, etc, etc. It has a lot of weight through it. You're right. However, the actual bones that we walk through, the contact comes from the earth, are your short bones, your ankle bones and your wrist bones. They support a huge amount of body weight, which is why we can do things like press ups. We can push up off the ground using our hands, and we walk on, if you look at the smallest bones in the body really when you think about it. So a short bone is most suitable for weight bearing, that's why there's quite a lot of them. So that's really important. So 1A was C, a load of you went for long bones on that one. So 1B, which one of the following is the region of the vertebral column? So for us, you've got can, the lion, spine, change. So you've got 2 C's, bottom C being the coccyx. We remember that one more than most. So we've got C, T, L and S. So we go, there's no P, there is an S. So it could be either of the final 3. So if you can't remember whatsoever, just that process of elimination. The sternum, most of you realise is in the centre of your rib cage and your chest. So you go, that's nothing to do with the spine. Now the clavicle and cervical they've put just to throw you because they sound similar and they're relatively similar regions in the body, although one's at the front and one's in the spine. Cervical, a lot of people think of cancer, women's regions, etc, etc. So some of them go, oh, it can't be that, it's got to be clavicle. But those who know the skeletal system quite well will realise clavicle is one of the most frequent broken bones in sport. It's another word for your collarbone at the front. So by default there's actually only one vertebral column written there, which is why it's one of the following, and that is cervical. So that's the answer for that one. So your clavicle equals your collarbone. Sternum equals the rib connector, that's where you do chest compressions, and the pelvis is another word for your hip. Okay, so 1C. Which one of the following is the correct classification of the knee joint? Remember, knees and elbows are exactly the same as shoulders and hips are exactly the same, they're paired. So we've got a pivot joint, which if you guys remember, only exists in the neck. We've got ball and socket, which as I said, with the two that are connected, shoulders and hips. You've got lots of movement there. You've got the condyloid joint, which you'll find in your wrist. And then you've got your hinge joint, which is found in your knee and your elbow. Like a door, you can only do flexion extension. So by default, just by knowing a little bit about classifications, a lot of you did get this one, to be honest. So hinge was quite well answered. This one just throws you because you know one's one and one's the other, but it's connecting the two together. So which one of the following correctly states the roles of ligaments? So you've got join bone to bone, join muscle to bone, join tendons to muscles, join muscle to muscle. So we know it's not muscle to muscle, and we know it's not tendons to muscles, okay? So we've then got bone to bone and muscle to bone. One of these is a tendon and one of these is a ligament. So one of the most famous tendons in the body, we keep referring back to this, is a Greek god, a Greek mythical character, sorry, and his name was Achilles. And he famously got shot by an arrow in the Achilles, which is where the name comes from. And when you rupture the Achilles, that's a tendon that pulls your muscle down, your gastrocnemius down. It stops you from being able to walk because you can't pull your foot up anymore. So it's a really good injury to have if you're in a fight because it stops the opponent being able to come towards you. So the most famous one in the body is the Achilles, which you'll be able to feel in your body during the exam. For example, you'll be able to touch down and feel the Achilles. It sticks out the back. It's quite, you can feel it quite a lot when you're sitting there. So your Achilles, so that's stretching your muscle and connecting it to your foot bones, which means you can then move your ankle in dorso and plantar-flexion. So if we know that the Achilles is a tendon and it attaches my muscle to my bone, I know that's a tendon. Then by default I'm left with, because it's not muscle to bone, because we know that's a tendon, and we think of the famous Achilles, that leaves us with bone to bone, so ligaments, where we got loads of ligaments. The big famous ligaments are cruciate ligaments that are often popped in sports. They're the ones that connect the bones around the knee joint. So you hear the people saying, oh, I've done my ACL in, so I can't play sport anymore. So that's the substance that connects the bones together, which gives us stability and structure. So that's the role of the ligaments, for example. So the answer to that one was A. Okay, turning over. So first thing on this question with the heart, particularly as we did that as a fairly recent topic, which one of the following blood vessels takes oxygenated, that's important, blood away from the heart to the body? Now remember, artery equals away, vein equals return. Even if it's going away to the heart, from the heart to the lungs, it's still an artery, even though it's deoxygenated. But generally, as a whole, the arteries are oxygenated and the veins are deoxygenated. So by default, we know veins return, so we can get rid of that one. Vena cava is an example of a vein. It's even got vena to try and give you some help on that one. So some of you might be able to do that process as elimination. You've then got left with two arteries. You've got the pulmonary and you've got the aorta. Because it said oxygenated, the pulmonary artery takes blood away from the heart. It takes all the stuff that you've brought back from the body to the heart to get oxygenated. So the pulmonary artery takes it to the lungs where it gets oxygenated. Then the pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood back to the heart, and then we pump it around the body via the aorta. If you remember, it's the spout at the top with the three main areas. Looks a bit like that, really bad drawing. Three main areas that spout off to the head and to the arms. So your answer on that one is your aorta. Identify where gaseous exchange takes place. Most people did a good job on here. Diaphragm, they realise, is the thing that helps us breathe. The bronchi, we've got your left and your right. That separates down into your little bits of broccoli. Your stems. God, awful drawings. And then at the end of your bronchioles, these tiny little balls here are filled with alveoli. And it's the alveoli where we know that one cell thick gaseous exchange takes place. So that again gives us the final option. Again, most of us did a good job at this one. So with G, we've got which one of the following is the PED, performance enhancing drug, an athlete is most likely. So we've talked about this quite a lot. about the idea that sometimes there's more than one option, but most likely there is only one answer, to help increase power and strength. So beta blockers, so your heart beats and it blocks it. So this one reduces your heart rate. Steroids, we think of training harder and longer. Diuretics, toilet, flushing out. And narcotic analgesics, you guys know, are painkillers, like Narcos TV show, for example. So which one of the following is most likely to help increase their power and strength? Well, painkillers won't increase it. It will enable you to train through the pain, but it won't increase it, so it can't be painkillers. We don't want to flush out the system. That doesn't help us at all, apart from masking drugs or helping us lose weight. Do we want to reduce our heart rate while working out? No, we want our heart to pump blood to our muscles so they can get bigger and stronger. So the anabolic steroids enabling you to train harder and longer means anabolic steroids are the only available answer to that one. And then finally with H, which one of the following PEDs is the athlete most likely to take to increase O2 delivery to the muscles? So stimulants, we think of Red Bull, it's caffeine. EPO, we think of blood. I think of doping. Growth hormones, we think of growing upwards, think of Messi. Beta blockers, like before, beat, block, equals the heart. So the most likely to increase oxygen, we've got the red blood cells here. More of those, more oxygen. So your only correct available answer was EPO. So out of 8 marks, one of the things I want you to reflect on is they're fairly simplistic answers, because on the page is the actual answer. So you've got a question and answers, and it's just a process of elimination. Have a look back at some of your answers to see what on earth you did to get the answer that you got. Was it a really easy error? Was it you're still not sure about the topic? What was the reason why you got that one wrong? And that's the first step.